Welcome back, everyone, to Ep.6 of the Pariah podcast. We got a little bit of a refresh crew here with us today. We got my brother Nabir, we got our friend Mahmoud, and our other friend Abdulaziz Al-Mashouk, who, if you'll remember, did our live correspondence for the North London Derby. So very much appreciated, Aziz. Glad to have you back. We have a very, very exciting week in football to talk about. Game week 8 in the Premier League has concluded, and match day 2 of the Champions League has concluded. So there's much to discuss. We're going into international break, so I guess our takes here today will hold a little bit more value because they will expire later than most, right? There's one fixture I know is on everyone's mind in all of the footballing world, and I'm not going to hesitate to start with it. This past weekend, the mighty Arsenal took down the Goliath that is Manchester City, the treble-winning side that is Manchester City, for the first time since 2015 in the league. A new leaf of this book of the Premier League was turned. As Ten Hag famously said, eras come to an end. And maybe that happened this past Sunday. Someone got to roll the clip about the good old days and how they're the good old days. But let me know you guys' thoughts. Don't all go at once. Here we go.
All right, I'm gonna go. Okay. So I know you guys are gonna be like, oh, Arsenal this, Arsenal that. But if you think about it, City are washed. Or as every year would happen, they would be washed at the beginning of the season, and then they kind of like figure a way out to get back to winning 10, 12, 15 games in a row. So I don't know. They're a slow start to the season, just like every season. But if you see, they lost to the mighty Toon in the Carabao Cup. They lost to they lost in the league twice in a row, right?
To Wolves and us, yes.
Yeah, for the first time in the 5 years. So
I mean, this is
so they haven't been having a good month, I would say.
It's supposed to be the best team in the world right now.
I mean, they definitively are. They hold 3 of the biggest titles, right? But I guess the challenge is on that whole thing about they always start slow. I agree they always start slow. And if there's any team that could come back, it's them. But Gary Neville, who talks a lot of nonsense, had a really good point at the start of the season. And it's true. And the reason I'll hear from him, he was talking about the complacency that happens after winning a treble. And he has won a treble before. And he talked about the atmosphere in the United dressing room after winning it, and it was a lack of motivation. And he argued that had the rest of the league not dropped in quality so much the year following United's treble, they likely would not have won that next league title. And in City's case, the quality of the league has only improved, right? They are not going against pushovers, right? Every single team in the Premier League's top 10 last year has improved drastically. We're seeing that with all these new, like this season, we did a top 8 prediction instead of a top 6, right? That only speaks to how much stronger the league is, how many more teams there are that could take points off City. So I don't think that comeback will be as easy this year.
No, I agree with you, right? Like Arsenal's Invincibles, they didn't win the league for however long after that. Like
right.
I understand, like after a big achievement. But I think that they're missing key players this year, like long injuries. De Bruyne, we all know De Bruyne is insane. Other than that, like they lost like Gundogan, they lost like a couple of their key players, right? They replaced them with good players, but when it comes to like the injuries, like in the beginning of the season, they had their set players. They're like, okay, we're gonna roll with this squad. Rodri is suspended. De Bruyne is done, right? Like he's injured for a long time. So those two, I think it's not anything. This is like one of two of the best players like in the world, I would say.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
yeah, like it's not only complacency. Like they're really struggling with their key players. I feel.
I mean, and every team goes through with that. Every team loses their trademark player.
Absolutely. That's what I was gonna say. Like
you can look at us last season. You know, you can argue had we not lost Saliba and Partey towards the end of last season, things could have shaped out differently. But it's shit happens, man. You got to deal with it. You move on. You figure it
I'm
out.
just saying, like, it's both of them, right? The
Mhm.
slow start of the season that we usually see with the City, right? Being complacent in the first like 10 match weeks, and then they come back and win a lot in a row. Also, on top of that, the injuries. That's like my
Right.
take.
And if we're doing like an analysis as to why these things are happening, that's absolutely fair. But I think it's like whenever I hear this injuries point brought up, it seems that some clubs almost use it as an excuse, where to Mahmoud's point, it's just like a part of, football. Like that, I remember that year where Liverpool barely clutched top four. Van Dijk was injured. So many of their defenders were injured, right? People were treating that like, oh my God, poor Liverpool. But like these things happen, right? In our title run, we lost who I'd argue is probably the best center back in the world right now, and we didn't get to use that as an excuse. We were labeled bottlers, all this and that, right? I don't want to make this about us, but I'm just saying injuries are part and parcel of the game, and let's break down each one, right? Rodri's is a suspension, and I've seen so many people talk about like Ballon d'Or shouts for Rodri now that we see how terrible this team is without him. And I'd argue against that. Like, it's not just Rodri gone. I'd argue that if KDB was there, if Gundogan was still in that team and Rodri was missing, City would have found a way against Wolves, against Newcastle, against us, right? It's a combination of everything. And I know Rodri's coming back, but to touch on KDB's injury a little bit, this is a 4-month hamstring injury at the age of 32. I know his game doesn't rely on pace and power, but it's irresponsible to assume that he's going to come in firing right away. Like if City's hope is rested on KDB coming back and instantly getting like 20 assists to end the campaign, I think they're in trouble.
Yeah, but also like the Rodri situation is that there's no replacement for him. Like you have Calvin Phillips,
Yes,
who has not, reached that a starter like status. So he's not on that caliber. Like he was like away from training, he was getting like overweight and all that. So like I don't know. He does not like on the City team, every position they have a backup to. Every single position. Even Haaland has a backup. Except Rodri. He doesn't have a proper backup.
I'd argue the most suitable backup in that City team for Rodri's position is John Stones. Yeah. And
but Stones played in, but the thing is, with Stones playing, they played at 2 CDMs or whatever, right? So 2 number 6s, and then they created this box midfield that everyone's talking about. So that's why without Rodri, you can't play Stones alone. That's what it is, like as a pivot. But I'm gonna argue also on top of that City's losses haven't been like a terrible performance from them. They played really well. It's just like it was fine margins that they lost. We see in previous season same things, but they end up winning like a game with like fine margins, and we're like, oh, they won on like 12, 13 game win streak. But some of them would be like in the 90th minute or fine margins, or like they're down on XG or whatever. But like, so I don't know.
I agree,
Yeah,
but
I agree with the fact that you just said, because like they're missing 2 of their biggest players, and that game wasn't like a landslide win by Arsenal. Like, I feel like it could have gone either way, and thankfully it did ours way. But I think the complacency argument for City, after watching them win the treble, after winning two games, 2 league titles in a row, I don't think it stands for that team, man. Like Pep is able to take that out of anybody that's like even the slight, because he will, like, if the fact that he got rid of Gundogan, I don't think it's because Mahrez is because they didn't need him. It's because he wanted to get rid of the complacency. Those players, if you think about it, were most likely to be complacent. The team that they have right now, the way they act after losses, the way they kind of their demeanor is, I don't see a single bit of complacency in that team. They are upset. They're gonna fight till the end, and I feel like they're gonna get far. It's not like they're weak or they're washed or anything.
Yeah, it's not that like they've achieved something that no one has ever achieved that they're complacent now. Madrid won the Champions League 3 times in a row. So to them, at least that's the goal. At least.
Fair. And listen, they are chasing the first 4P, right? In terms of prems, right? That's never been done, and that's possible for them. But I disagree with this equating, oh, they were hungry after 2 Premier League titles and they still won the treble. They had not won the Champions League. That was their hunger last year, right?
Yeah, but they could have easily focused on the Champions League, but they did not. They could have easily shoved everything down and focused on Champions League, but
I mean, it's not like
they
didn't focus on Champions League. With them, it's not, you don't have to prioritize A or B. They have a squad deep enough to win both, right? It's not like they rested players in the Champions League to go for the Prem. That never happened.
Yeah, the Champions
League, they didn't do the other way
semifinals. The semifinal onwards is like 3 games.
It's 3 games,
and they're so like spread out. Like there's no.
It doesn't require
games. Nothing. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
Right, but like I'm just saying, like even I just never felt like we're gonna sacrifice some players here just to make sure the champ. Like we do that. I feel like we have backups to every position right now, and we still do that. Like every team does that. Like you can see, like, hey, we'll rest a little player here and there just for the.
No, I'm arguing that they never rested anybody in the Champions League to focus Prem. Them winning the Prem was. I definitely don't think the Prem was their primary target last year. It's just something
but I'm saying like they could have easily done that if their main part, like if their hunger was for the Champions League. I'm saying there's no complacency because they want to win the Premier League and the Champions League. That's the argument I'm making. They don't want to just win one of them.
Like, I'm not saying they didn't want to win. I'm just saying having won a Premier League the previous year and then winning it again, right?
Yeah.
Along with the Champions League. That's different than having just won the treble and then focusing on a Prem. Does that make sense? Like,
no, I'm not saying they're focusing on. I'm
like the serotonin from winning a Premier League the previous year. There's not the same level of complacency as, oh, we just won literally everything there was to win. So we really no. Listen, if City win the Premier League and the FA Cup this year, they still did worse than last year. That's the type of complacency that I'm worried would sneak into their heads, right? Like it's almost impossible to improve on the season they had last year.
But I feel like the narrative is going to be there no matter what, right? Like it's going to be there. So judging by like their performances on the field, I don't think they're like they dipped on performance.
Yeah.
You know where I'd argue against that? Watch the 8 minutes of play after we scored. Last year, City does not sit around like that. Like the amount of control we had in those last 8 minutes surprised the hell out of me. Like,
I think that's more on us than them. I think our control.
No, but bro, even in that game, we've seen how City suffocates. Like my mind sometimes can't comprehend like how City are able to just get the ball whenever they want and keep it away from us whenever they want. In the last 8 minutes, the roles reversed, and I've never seen City down a goal. First of all, that doesn't happen often. One, and when it does happen, I've never seen such a lack of urgency.
Boo-hoo City. Boo-hoo City. Going through all this tough injury crisis.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
No,
like,
but look.
I'm not here to talk about City for the next 20 minutes. I want to talk about our football club.
All right.
And let me just say, we ourselves have had the burdens of early season. You know, one of the first games of the season, Timber's out basically the whole season. Who knows when he's coming back. All right. Yeah. We also, our star boy was out for this game. And for some gracious miracle, Thomas Partey and Martinelli made the bench. None of us expected that. And then they came in the second half. So you could say, you know, coming into this game, we had major disadvantages as well. On top of that, we ourselves have not been playing well. You know, I know we've been getting results. We've been getting, you know, undefeated in the league, but to be quite honest with you, as we mentioned before, we have not been playing well. We have not been playing consistently well. I haven't seen us put in a legitimate good performance in the league yet. We've been scraping by, which, you know, we've gained some maturity with our squad. We made some smart decisions, some game management, which is all great. That can only last you so long. But this game, our performance this game, we had just as many disadvantages, or setbacks as City going into this game. And it came down to which team could make it over the line. And watching the entire game, my mind was thinking, I think this is just going to be a draw towards the end. Let's just play it safe. You know, don't want to lose. It would be great if we win, but somehow, some way, Arteta's sub, credit to the manager, all 4 of our subs were involved in our goal, and we did it, boys. We made it through. We did it. And
what do you think of Tomiyasu's run?
Tomiyasu's run.
I love Japan.
I love Japan right here.
That came out of nowhere. I mean, I don't think any of us would have predicted that. I've never seen him even do that before. I mean, he definitely has, just given his height, you know, that aerial dominance, him and Kai both in the box. And honestly, had that ball come down to Nketiah, I don't think he lays it off for Martinelli.
Dude, Nketiah turns around, tries to shoot, and falls on his ass. That's exactly what happens. And that's not even hate to him. It's just the first.
He's drilled. That's drilled into him.
Exactly.
Like he knows that's what he's gonna do.
And honestly, like that's probably what a striker should try to do in that situation, is shoot. It's because of Kai Havertz's lack of confidence right now. I think that goal happened. Most nines aren't laying that ball off, regardless of how intelligent they are.
I would add on to that. When I was watching the game, I was very frustrated that, like, the split second out, there was frustration. Oh, he missed the opportunity to shoot that ball. But looking back at the replays, that ball that came from Tomiyasu, it was like really slow. It came behind him. The only, I think, logical thing for him to do was lay it off, and thankfully he did. And Martinelli
but look,
that.
86 minute in a game of that magnitude, if you're a striker, you just see the headlines, right?
Yeah.
If Kai was probably a little bit more confident, maybe he takes that shot. But I'm glad he did.
Kai isn't that guy, though. Kai has never been that guy.
I agree.
Just to make the exceptional finish or exceptional volley, he's always been the guy that plays it safe and lays it off. Even leading up to that goal, I remember there was a throw-in where he made this great run in the box and he laid it off to Odegaard, who laid it off to Jesus, and that was another great chance for us. Like, I don't think it's a lack of confidence that was leading to him to lay it off to Martinelli. I just think that's the way he plays. That is his strong suit. He's just not that guy. He knows his strengths and his weaknesses, and he plays to his strengths, and we reap the rewards of that.
I'm so glad it was Tommy, though, that made that move happen. He definitely needed redemption after.
I mean, who would have predicted that? Who would have predicted that?
It's crazy. It's crazy how life works.
Zinchenko would never.
And I don't know what's crazier, Tomiyasu making that run or Partey playing it to him.
Exactly. You watch the replay and there's literally nothing going on in the field. Like, everyone's like at a standstill. You just think Partey's just going to pass it from side to side, and Tommy just makes that dash into the box, like out of nowhere, like boom, like play it to me. And thank goodness it was Partey, because I don't see Jorginho playing that ball to Tomiyasu.
But
not because Jorginho doesn't have the quality, but I don't think that Jorginho would have the confidence in Tomiyasu to play that off like that.
I think the way we won that game was definitely the game plan on how to win that game. I think the way Arteta approached this was finally so mature. In years past, we've seen us try to go toe-to-toe with City, and in a game where City looked weak, I thought he'd try the same thing again, but our approach was so much more pragmatic. Like, we still did press, but we chose our moments. It wasn't just headless chicken running all game. And I think starting Jorginho was part of that decision to calm everything down, put emphasis that, hey, we are not going to outrun them today. Today's about staying compact and hoping and praying that we are the side that gets the moments to go for us, right? City had 2 really strong chances early on, and David Raya was shaky and it led to some vulnerability. Those moments could have gone their way in that period, right? But I think Arteta took that gamble that we're going to try to keep it as locked as possible and play these long balls, Jesus on the wing, try to get him to create some madness, right? When Havertz came on, play these long balls and see if we could work something. And thank God we could.
Yeah, I think, like, during that game, I just felt like it was like two big giants going against each other, because whenever City had the ball, they didn't lose the ball straight away. They had the ball for a strong like 2-3 minutes. They're passing it around. We weren't able to get the ball, but and they ended up trying a shot or a pass that didn't make it through. We got the ball, and the same thing happened on our side. I feel like we didn't lose the ball directly. We had some sort of possession going on, and we were just doing our thing. It felt like two big, strong, confident teams that are defensively so solid. Like, I feel like the defenses in this team are very, very like they will cut out any type of thoughts you might have from the midfield and onwards to backwards. Like, how many shots? I feel like we took 12 shots, and like there was like a couple on target. We had the better chances, I feel like, but it's just that their defenses were just like both sides of defenses were phenomenal.
There was 6 center backs on that pitch. 7 if you count Walker. And he played center back often, right? So like it shows just like the contrast of, for example, the games of City versus Liverpool that were so like open and so offense versus offense. Here it was a war of attrition with the defenses. Like, who's going to be the first one to leak?
This is the first time when I can say that I think Arsenal bullied City. From a head-to-head standpoint, our big men versus their big men.
Yeah.
We always won the 50-50s. We always won the duels. And I don't think I've ever seen that before.
And we always left a little something on them.
Correct.
Like that gif flowing around on Twitter of Saliba body checking Haaland. Yeah. Sure, that's a fun moment for the fans, but it's part of like the mental gymnastics in a game of football, right? Seeing your guy, your talisman, get absolutely checked, right? It adds something, another element to the game. And I saw Gabriel, Declan Rice, all taking every single opportunity to do something like that. And I think in the end, those 3 players I just mentioned, Saliba, Declan Rice, and Gabriel, they were the difference. I know who combined for the goal and whatnot, but the sheer solidity that they gave us was crazy.
Yeah.
I think Declan, on my mind, man of the match. I'm kind of perplexed that people all over Sky or English media are saying he didn't have one of his best games. I thought he dominated that.
Excellent. That tackle where he goes back and just almost like teleports the ball off Mateus Cunha. It was like, not Cunha, Nunez. And it was insane. Like, I've watched that so many times, and it's like I don't even know how he did it.
Exactly. It's just like he somehow makes the perfect move, just makes the perfect interception. It's just like, where does that come from? And
I don't even want to talk biomechanics, but it's his legs, bro. He has some of the longest legs I've ever seen. This guy's like 70% legs, which makes his stride so crazy to catch up, and also makes it so he could tackle you from behind without fouling.
And his signature thing is he slides and gets up in a second, like he never fell on the floor.
He doesn't fully commit to the slide. Yeah. He like gets on one knee. It's crazy.
You're talking about slides and tackles. Are we going to talk about the Kovacic challenge?
Yeah, it's going to get brushed over because we won. But first of all, I don't know how that first challenge isn't a red. Yeah. But let's, for example, for just for the sake of conversation, entertain the idea that maybe it would have been harsh to give him a red there. The ref had the perfect opportunity to redeem himself literally like 3 minutes later when Kovacic goes again reckless, does not get any of the ball, studs in a Declan Rice's ankle, and he says no, immediately no. To me, it's like, okay, surely Mike Oliver knows that the first tackle went to a VAR review. Right. At that point, regardless of what he thinks, he should know that, hey, that tackle was bad enough to warrant an escalation, right? Say he has a disagreement, doesn't get to check the screen. Why would you then not be on high alert on the next side? Why would you then give the player leeway when he does the exact same challenge again?
He gave the foul. Like, he literally gave the foul the second time, and we all saw how bad it looked the second one. Like, why else are you giving a foul? And if you know that that was a dirty play, it wasn't legal.
He argues that he didn't want to
behind again on him.
He argues that he didn't want to do 2 yellows in quick succession, but this is the same exact referee that set Martinelli off with 2 yellow cards in the span of 7 seconds. 7 seconds on the same play. He didn't even stop the play for the first yellow. I believe the sequence of the play. I'll play the clip for TikTok. He pushes the guy taking the throw in. The throw in happens. He then tracks down the guy that received the throw in and tackles him. 2 yellows, same play, but 2 separate yellow card worthy challenges at minimum, and he does not send him off. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I think from the angles that I saw on the second tackle, I think he didn't have good visibility. That's number one. But regardless of the fact, I think the rules in this situation of when VAR intercepts needs to really change, because think about like, oh, if it's not a straight red, they can't comment or they can't advise that situation. But a red, if the end result should be a red, this is something I think VAR should look into, like intercept and like advise the referee, hey, you missed a clear and obvious second yellow card offense. Let's just go double check that on that. Like I don't understand, and I don't agree with the fact that VAR can only interrupt in straight red challenges. That just doesn't make sense to me.
I think the frustrating thing is the lack of consistency, and the public or fans have not got a legitimate reason for why these mistakes keep happening. You look at Mike Dean's recent interview, he just brings it down to, well, fans and even recent players don't know the law as well as the referees do. And I'm sorry, but if we're so ignorant that we cannot understand the law of the game, as well as players who have played the game in the past, like who knows the law better than players who are actually in the game during the game time? They understand how hard it is to make certain tackles. They understand how critical the timing is of a certain tackle. So they understand those types of scenarios. But to just say that, hey, we can't explain this well enough to you all because you guys lack ignorance, you didn't take our online courses, you don't have the expertise of a referee, I'm sorry, that's bullshit. Dude, like we are seeing similar challenges game by game by game, given different decisions.
Right.
Dude, think about the type of person you need to be to wake up one day and think, oh, when I grow up, I want to enforce the rules of football. Like it takes a special caliber of weirdo to want to do that, right? So when Mike Dean is sitting on that panel and getting in like a hissy fit because Paul Merson said, hey, maybe you should enforce the laws in the spirit of the game instead of what the words say, right? Like, it's such a disconnect. And I really think the PGMOL says they constantly have meetings with each team's players and staff to have like open air conversations about rules. Clearly that's not happening. There's no understanding because if your end goal as a referee isn't to make sure that justice was served, if your end goal is to make sure you follow this little rule book in your pocket, then you're doing it wrong. That's not your job.
It's Mike Dean's excuse was, it's the law, I can't do anything about it. It's the law, I can't change, I can't stop the play, it's the law, that's the way it is. Well, I'm sorry, but if you see something clearly grossly wrong and you have the opportunity to fix it, literally stopping the game for a couple seconds and fixing that grossly wrong decision, which we all agree on, like it's a unanimous consensus that goal in the Liverpool game should have stood. No one would have given him a hard time. He stopped the game and said, this goal needs to be given. But because it's against the quote unquote law of the game, I'm sorry, there is a time where rules and laws are meant to be broken. And in such a scenario where you're preserving the integrity of the game, yes, you need to break that law.
And that law would never need to be broken if you had just enforced the law properly the first time.
If the law was broken.
If you were so committed to respecting the law, you would just do your job right, and we wouldn't need VAR, right? It's because of your failure that you need to break the law. And sometimes if you broke the law once, you need to break it again to correct it. And your inability to do that.
That's just British culture, man. Like they're so like
anal
into the law, and like
so
they
bad.
need to form to complete anything, and they need to.
You had a tough time at immigration?
I'm just kidding.
Nobody even
it's just like they're known.
It even comes down to like players can't give their honest opinions during interviews, even if they're being respectful, because the FA will just fine them. managers can't give their honest opinions. I mean, we all know trademark Mourinho, he's like, if I speak, I'm in big trouble. I mean, the guy, I hate the guy, but he's hilarious and he's entertaining. But honestly, like if managers try to speak their minds, and if they speak it in a respectful way, if the FA doesn't like you, sorry, buddy, you're getting a fine or you're getting a ban, which who does that benefit at the end of the day? Just benefit the FA, because they can just continue to feed us their bullshit regimen of, conduct things in a orderly way. The British way, as I was using.
The British way.
Look, I completely agree. And had we lost that game, this discussion would just be about referees. But thankfully, we don't have to do that today because we won the game. Is there any more flowers we would love to give Arsenal for this victory? I feel like there's a lot to talk about still. Look, I want to say my 2 cents first. We need to start having serious conversations about William Saliba and Gabriel. Both. Like, it's, if not one of the best partnerships in Europe, the best defensive partnerships in the world. Happy balloons.
It's the.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, but hey, the balloons are for the partnership because it's crazy what they're doing, and they each individually have their own right to be called the best center backs in the world.
No, I completely agree. And it's going to be a challenge keeping them at the Arsenal, because even this last summer, there were rumors that Gabriel was going to be snatched up by Saudi. Pretty lucrative deal, if you ask me. But
hey, even this year, we weren't starting Gabriel in the first 3 games, right? Like, I don't know what experiment that was, but thank God it was forced to stop. But yeah, I don't know. They're phenomenal. I think everyone had a good game.
And then I think people were giving Raya some critique just because of his mistakes at the beginning. Arteta came out and he was explaining that, in his mind, and a goalkeeper can be subbed or interchanged on a regular. And I think it's going to be interesting seeing some of the mistakes he made in the first 20 minutes of the game, whether Arteta think that's enough to throw Ramsdale back in, or if he just shoots Raya being like, no, just keep coasting through. We're getting the results. I will say we did see Raya's quality towards the end of the game when we had the lead. We were possessing the ball, and he was just pinging long balls, pinpoint straight to like Havertz, Jesus, just controlling. We were like, I remember watching him being like, don't keep shooting the ball long, like stop passing long. But they were pinpoint, pinpoint. And I know Ramsdale is a good distributor like that, but he does not have that quality. I mean,
and another quality that's missing in Ramsdale, I have never seen Ramsdale go from shaky to confident. It's always the opposite, right? And that would go for almost everyone on this world, right? You never go from a nervous position to a composed one. So to see him have the inverse game that Ramsdale usually has was impressive. And to speak to your question, Mahmoud, about like whether Raya might be getting dropped, I listened to Arteta's post game, and he kind of took the blame for the first 20 minutes. He said that the game plan instructed by Arteta was to have Raya linger over the ball too long, like intentionally. He said he told Raya to hover over the ball as much as possible to read the game as well as he could before launching it. So those instances where I was screaming at the TV, like, launch it, bro, it was instructed that way.
Part of the plan. I honestly, I'll say it's the first time I've seen a scenario where towards the end of the game, I don't know if you all remember, where Raya had the ball and he like instructs Gabriel and
back up
Saliba to just like wall him away. He's just trying to kill some time. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, and that speaks. I mean, this whole conversation about subbing goalkeepers came from Arteta saying there was an instance against Fulham where he wanted to sub the keeper to close the game out, right?
Yeah.
And now I get it. Like, I've never seen a goalkeeper close a game out the way he did. When that long ball fell to him, I expect a normal goalkeeper to, first of all, fall on it and stay on the ground as long as possible. This guy takes it first time with his feet, dribbles for a solid 5 seconds before picking it up. Like it's insane the technical ability he has, and like where he falls short in things like claiming crosses. I thought that was a weak point in the game. He more than makes up for it, in my opinion. Gotcha. So I think that concludes that for the Arsenal game. And currently, the Premier League table is shaping up to be very, very interesting heading into the second international break. We have Spurs and Arsenal joint top. Spurs are ahead with 2 more goals scored than us. And then in third place, we have City with 18 points. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on this title race? How do you think it's shaping up? Do you think Spurs are the elephant at the top of the tree, or do you think they deserve to be there and will stay there?
I mean, they clearly deserve to be there just based off of the results. And, just like anyone this season, I wouldn't say there's a team that's just dominated through and through every game. So I think everyone currently deserves where they're at. But it's early. I don't know, what was that? Is that the 8th game we've played?
Yep.
It's early to tell. I do think that we will have multiple teams in the hunt, whether that's Liverpool, Arsenal, City, or Spurs intermingled in there. I don't think it's going to be a 2-horse race just between City and Arsenal. I think there'll be waves. I remember last season when there was even talks of Manchester United being in the title race when they were only a couple points behind us. And I think as the season progresses, we'll get a better idea of who actually is the strongest team this season. I think with a full squad, I still do think Man City take it away. But if Spurs continue on this trajectory of getting results without necessarily playing well through and through, I can see them challenging. I don't see why they can't. Yeah, what do y'all think?
For me, like as I said in the last episode, I'm still waiting for Tottenham to kind of go through those clinical teams. They got a red card, I think halfway through Bissouma.
Bissouma.
For diving. The second yellow was for diving, actually.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah, he got. I mean, playing with 10 men sometimes can be actually easier because you focus on defensive more, but to get the goal after getting a red card, thankfully it was against Luton Town. So, still for me, I feel like Tottenham needs to go through some more difficult games and actually get some results in those teams to kind of convince me otherwise. But for me, they've played like I think 4 of the bottom 4 already, and out of the 8 games. So I'll still wait on it to give Spurs their credit.
I mean, but they played us at our home, and
look, not to sound like Lampard, but listen, I'll read out their fixtures. They played Brentford, drew, right? They beat United, which I think is their foundation for their title claim, right? They beat Bournemouth, Burnley, and Sheffield. And Sheffield, if you'll remember, was the last-minute winner. They drew to us. They beat Liverpool, and then they beat Luton. They've played all 3 of the newly promoted sides, and those 3 make up 3/5 of their wins. So
I honestly don't think that matters. I mean, a game is a game.
I agree. And past Spurs teams probably don't beat the newly promoted sides as easily, but I think fixture difficulty definitely matters. And I think the current top 4 as it stands, Spurs, City, Arsenal, and Liverpool, will be the teams that finish in the top 4 at the end, which I wouldn't have said at the start of the season. But I don't think that's the order it's going to stay in. And I think that's going to come down to when things start to get a little bit more difficult for Spurs. What I do think is really helpful, now that we have, 4 teams in Spurs, us, City, and Liverpool that are strong, and the rest of the teams that are getting stronger, it leads to the league being much more entertaining. Last year, it felt like Arsenal and City are going to play every team and see who can maybe take points off them. This season, there's so many more teams that could take points off a Manchester City, off of Arsenal, off of a Liverpool, that it starts to get interesting, right? And I think, to your point, it will be more than a 2-horse race.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's early. Things could literally change after 2 weeks.
Right.
Something could drop off. I think last year it was I loved last season. Okay, I loved the entire season despite the way it finished, but it was exhausting. I would say the second half of the season, where not necessarily the games, but every conversation before the game or after the game was always, are Arsenal title contenders? Can they keep this up? Are Man City going to come back? And I felt like every single game, that is all anyone ever spoke about, which I guess that does happen when you put your first title charge in, when was the last time we even had a title charge? 10, 15 years. You could maybe argue that season Leicester when we had a title charge. But I do hope it's more teams this season, just not only just for the entertainment value, but also gives us a bit of variety in what we discuss leading up to games, because it's not only exhausting, but just so boring just to hear the pundits speak about the same thing, just saying the same thing in so many different ways every single match week.
Look, as
That's
a football,
why we hate City, they're so boring to watch.
Yeah.
As a football fan, like Spurs fans, you should absolutely think you're in a title race. Like, there's no point watching if you don't think that, right? Like, every Premier League team on game week 1, doesn't matter if you're Luton, you want in your head to be in a title race. So go for it 100%. But if we're speaking objectively, right? Like last season, in my heart felt we were in a title race since game week 1, but my head knew we realistically weren't until we went and beat Liverpool. I think it was in like November or something, right? So even though I agree with you that, hey, like, go for it, like, believe in what you want, it doesn't matter who you played, you're winning games, right? I do think if you want to like objectively discuss what it's going to come down to in May, it will take a little bit more for Spurs to earn the respect that they want.
Yeah, they have to earn any sort of respect, because I don't think any team respects them at this point.
Yeah. Dude, their last title was in 1961. The country I was born in didn't exist. It still had 10 years left, brother. So like, it's gonna take them beating some bigger team. They have the opportunity to do that, and we'll see how it goes. Another interesting. Go for it. Yeah.
What's interesting is that Aston Villa is 5th. They're 4th, 4 points away from first place. 2 points away from City, and 1 point away from Liverpool.
It's crazy.
It's like, very tight. Like, if you think about it, it's only like, so it's very early to judge. That's what it is.
Absolutely. And like to speak to the increased parity in this league, right? We had another great game on Sunday. It was Brighton versus Liverpool. It ended in a 2-2 draw, but it felt like so much more. Let me know you guys' thoughts.
I think Liverpool, maybe the week prior, they got the steam. They lost their, attacking prowess.
Momentum,
I feel like the momentum was lost with the decision. I feel like the whole week they kind of talked about, what do you want to do? They were investigating. They wanted the clip out, and they want to replay all these things. All this energy was focused on that game. Feel like they didn't prepare well enough. And on the Brighton side of things as well, like, they just held like 6 to Aston Villa, and they just came to Liverpool. They were shaky. I feel like there was two teams that met that were not at their peak. They were not at their best. And that's what the game looked like. I feel like in defenses, they were like slacking. In the midfield, I feel like lots of balls were lost. The finishes were not there. They missed great opportunities, both sides, to score and, increase their lead. But that's the type of game it looked like. But, it's kind of sad for Liverpool that I feel like they could have won the game, but, at the very end, they kind of gave up the silly goal, and Brighton took their advantage. But they still look good. Liverpool looks good. Brighton, I don't know. They give me like opposite spectrum of things in each game. Like one day they look sharp and ready, deadly, and the other days they're just like a mediocre team. I don't know how to judge them, honestly.
There's that kid on Brighton, number 20. I don't know where he is. What's his name?
The African
he's
guy?
really good. Yeah, I think he scored a goal too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was like
Adingra.
Yeah,
maybe.
I hope I'm saying
He
that.
was like retrieving the balls and like carrying the balls into their like box and doing everything. I don't know.
De Zerbi said after the game that credit to Brighton, they found another one. Like he was
Yeah.
like he already kind of earmarked him as, hey, this is the next 100 million player you're gonna buy off us.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
I don't know. I think, Nips, to your point, there's a reason I think a lot of top managers, when decisions go against them, they like to move on very quickly. And it's because when you entertain it and you engage with it, you allow this cloud to form over your club spirit, right? You allow players to kind of compartmentalize the defeats into, oh, it wasn't our fault, right? And it draws attention to so many other things away from just football. And I thought it was risky that Klopp and Liverpool took such involved stance with the decision. I thought it was important because it opened a very important conversation. But there's a reason other clubs haven't done that in the past, and I think that kind of hangover we saw in that Liverpool game is why most managers don't entertain stuff like that.
I mean, you could also say you could say hangover, but also like Liverpool haven't really shown they have their consistent swagger back from when they were great, 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago. That may be a factor of what had happened last week, but I just feel like every week we get a different Liverpool. Every week it's kind of just like, oh, well, I guess Liverpool turned up this week, and then the next week comes up, well, what the hell happened? They just went belly up again. So they're definitely in a transition period where some of their players who were great are getting a bit older, and they're still trying to find those youth players that they don't know whether they should invest all their time and energy into quite yet. I do think they will be good this season, but I do anticipate further ups and downs throughout the entire season. Just like I think towards the latter half of last season, we saw signs that Liverpool were kind of figuring things out and kind of on their way back to getting an identity again. And I think this whole season is going to be that, just figuring out their identity, figuring out their core of who they field, who they want to invest their time into. And honestly, next season they could come in with a bang.
I think even this season there could be a bang. Like
I don't know. I disagree. I feel like they're like at any point they're gonna crumble. Like their whole thing
when
is
you say
to
crumble,
go down 1-0 and then come back 2-1.
But
right?
let's define that, right? Like, what do you think is their floor, and what do you think is their ceiling?
I think their ceiling is because they play with such high energy, right? They're not very solid defensively. It's just like their press. Everyone on the team just presses so much, right? Like look at their midfield. Like all the midfielders that they play every game, they're not very good defensively. They're just ballers.
They're not. None of them are defensive midfielders,
right? and so to them, it's like always outscore the opponent, and just like have a very high burst of energy like throughout the game, and like just score off of those, and Yeah. But like I feel like at some point like they're gonna run out of energy. So
no, but that's what I'm asking. You said like at any point they could crumble. When I say give me their like floor and ceiling, I mean like table positions. Like what do you think?
Yeah, like they can like lose 3 games in a row or whatever. Because like all the wins that they've won is like slim margins. Like they came back in the last 10 minutes, the last minute, whatever. So it could have gone either way. It could have easily been like 3 losses in a row instead of 3 wins in a row. and that would have made them like 10th place, I guess.
But even this game, if Gravenberch doesn't miss an open goal, they win, and we're not having this conversation. Like
I mean, City's on the verge of 3 losses in a row, and they're sitting third in the table.
Yeah, but City's City.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, look, I agree with your points. I mentioned last week, like not having a real DM is going to hurt them, but I still don't see Liverpool finishing below 5th. Like I think they'll be all right. Like be just because their offense is so overwhelmingly good that
I feel like predicting the league table like this early on is just
not. I mean, but the league table is
there's
relative.
so many variables that happen throughout the season.
Sure,
the
barring
injuries play a role. Other than injuries, like people just figure out how to beat certain teams, and just like let's say Liverpool last season or the season before, like everyone target Trent, everyone just like have quick runners on Trent's side or like Robbo's side, and then cross it to Trent's side, and he's not covering properly, and you can score. They score so many goals against them like that. So they just figure out how to beat them and like halfway through the season. And just the same thing with like City last season, where they didn't start off really well, and then they were like, okay, you know what? We're gonna play 6 center backs in the team or 5 center backs, and we're gonna create this new like midfield system, right? And we're gonna play Bernardo Silva as a left back. I don't know what he was doing. So things change, and like it really depends on like how you adapt to because the season is very long, and like how you adapt is like how.
But in response to that, I believe in Klopp more than most managers to be able to adapt. Like he has a clear lack of personnel in one position.
Very stubborn though. Like I don't know any manager that's more stubborn than him.
Arteta's pretty stubborn, bro.
Arteta's pretty stubborn. I'm not gonna lie. But okay, no, that's good. Some people think Liverpool will be all right. Some don't. I guess we will see.
I think floor is like 6th, 7th because the other teams are very good as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but like, let me pose it to you this way.
He's just sour he didn't put Newcastle in the top 4. That's why.
Nibs didn't put them in the top 8. That's the problem.
Oh man.
No, hey, speaking of Newcastle, there was a monumental match. In the context of this entire sport, I think.
It's just PSG.
PSG.
What do you mean it's just PSG?
PSG.
Farmers League.
Rocked up to Newcastle, and they got smacked.
Yes.
It was a real
smackdown.
I wish Newcastle weren't owned by Saudi, because then it would have hit up 400 billion times harder. Just knowing like, some kids from Newcastle just whooped a state funded team, but now it's just like state fund versus state fund. But I think,
but like Newcastle is not even like
that was low-key a proxy war in the Middle East that we witnessed.
But Newcastle is not even like throw money at the team and see what happens. Like they're really smart about their business.
It's early enough to where I still consider Newcastle just like the raggedy team that's sitting there.
Like no, I think the way they're building their team is very good. The manager is very good like scout. They hired the guy from Brighton.
Don't forget the assistant manager, man.
Yeah, don't forget the
assistant manager. Oh,
Come
man.
on, man.
Anyways, but hear me out. But the players that played that game, a lot of them that played really well were there before the Saudi takeover.
That's true.
Longstaff is very good, and he was there before the takeover. Almiron scored the first goal. He was there before the takeover. Trippier after
Dan
the
Burn.
takeover, I think.
Dude.
Yeah. And let me just say a very hot take, ball take. Dan Burn is the best left back in the league.
Hey yo,
Dan Burn isn't even a left back, fam. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's somebody's dad first,
dude. Dan Burn he plays because he's from Newcastle. He came up from the academy and all that. Like, so the passion is off the roof.
Dude,
He played with like 110% Grinta, you know what I'm saying?
Dan Burn and Sean Longstaff scoring in a Champions League game against PSG is the most. It sounds like two names you could just pick up from the British Parliament. Like those guys have no right to be scoring in that game, and like crazy goals too. They're not like finessing some crazy like lucky goal. Like I think Newcastle had a very deserved victory. I think let's talk about PSG for a moment. I know like most of our focus stays within the Premier League, but PSG kind of tried to do like a sort of rebuild, right? Where they're focusing now more on talent within the country, French talents instead of these superstar names they bring in. Kylian Mbappe has fully been given the keys to that organization. He's in his like GM mode, right? And you could see Mbappe looking around at the stadium like, what in the world has just happened, right? Like, I think he learned a valuable lesson that day that, like, his entire career, he's been surrounded by the biggest names, whether that be at the national team, PSG, or even that Monaco team he was in hindsight surrounded by just superstars and superstars. I think what he learned yesterday is this game is about so much more. You can't win a game of football with names on a sheet, right? You win a game of football with effort. And I think that's where PSG were significantly lacking on the day.
Yeah, man, their front
Newcastle
line
give effort,
for sure. I feel like their front line, and it was weird. Like there was this like there's second striker, and there's like a young kid leading the camp position. It was very weird, like the formation and the players they were running.
Yeah. Also, Kolo Muani is not good. Like
he's
they
not
got
all
him
that.
and they were
Kolo
like
Muani's a profile.
quoting 100 mil to Madrid in the summer. They're like, "Oh, you want him? This is 100 mil." You're like, "Bro, we don't even want him."
I think every team saw him miss that goal in the World Cup final and said, "I could fix him."
Yeah.
They said he's tall, he's skinny, he can run, he knows how to hit a ball, I guess.
But dude, like I was like, "Oh, who's this guy?" When you see like YouTube clips, it's like the best of the best. Like it's a highlight reel. This guy is not even that good. Like his highlight reel is not even that good. So I'm like, what is this hype about?
Listen, I'm not ready to write off a kid who's like 22, but
Yeah,
he's definitely not the guy who's gonna save PSG. PSG currently sit bottom of the group, if I'm not mistaken.
But can we write off?
No.
Can we write off
Third.
Ousmane Dembele though? Because that man just like had all the freaking promises. Oh, this guy's gonna be the next Ballon d'Or and all that. Every time I watch him, he does some dribbles, but there's literally zero end product. Like I don't know where he's going with the ball. I don't know what he's trying to achieve. It just looks like he's running towards the corner flag and gonna turn back, try some dribbles and lose the ball. Like, what is this guy like?
Dude,
Dan Burn locked him up. That's what it is.
Ousmane Dembele is probably top 5 greatest scammer in the history of the world. Like I got the guy that ran Bishop Sycamore, Ousmane Dembele, Martin Shkreli, and I don't know, whatever else you could think of. Like
Kawasi.
Him too, right? It's just like he has failed upwards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Guy started at Dortmund where he was actually good, went to Barca, scammed his way into some trophies somehow, scammed his way into some starts, and then somehow he gets a move to PSG. It's just like absurd to me what you can get if you could do a couple like Rabonas a season.
Yeah.
But I don't know. PSG, it's not looking good. And Newcastle are currently joint top of that group, right? The group of death.
Joint top, yeah.
Because they drew one and they won one, so 4 points. PSG won one, lost one, 3 points. What happened like Milan and
Here, let me pull
Dortmund?
it up. Let me pull it up. Let's see. Standings. So I mean we might as well go over all the groups, right? We haven't talked much about Champions League. I guess we can kind of do our predictions now that match day 2 is done. See who's going through and who's not. Why is this taking so long to load?
Newcastle is 4 points, PSG 3, Milan's 2 with 2 ties, and Dortmund's 1 point with 1 tie, 1 loss. Yeah.
So, who do you guys see going through there?
It's gonna be Newcastle and PSG.
I still think Newcastle has high likelihood to just drop off to Europa League in this group because I don't know, man. Like Milan, like the first game against Milan, they didn't look so hot. Dortmund can cause some upsets. It's still up in the air. I feel
but
like
these
that's
home
why
games for Newcastle, I think, are gonna make the difference. It's a crazy home advantage.
Yeah, if they win 2 more home games, that's it.
I think they'll beat Dortmund at home. I think maybe they could beat Milan at home. They already beat PSG at home. I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with Milan and Newcastle. I think PSG drop into the Europa League.
That's what I'm gonna say.
I don't think so, dude. Milan are not even that good, man.
But
it's about
bro,
the passion, homie. It's about the passion.
It's about like you talk about Newcastle. Like Milan played the San Siro.
Passion, but now you just trying to fade off Milan's passion.
That
but like you need to be good.
Heritage
passion.
Bro, let's be real. They should have beat you game week 1. They should have beat you.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
But
guess what? They didn't. So.
You see Olivier go on goal this past weekend. Like this
that was incredible.
Like give him some respect.
What a
I think it's gonna be PSG and Milan going through.
Fair enough. Let's do another fun group. Let me see if there's any close ones. Oh,
I think Arsenal are going to Europa League where they belong. Okay.
Fair enough.
Let's talk about it.
Hey, he who laughs last laughs hardest, right? So we'll see. Group A is the other interesting one. Currently, as it stands, Bayern topped the group with 6 points, Galatasaray with 4, Copenhagen with 1 point, and then dead last with 0 points is Manchester United, who just lost to Galatasaray at home. It's scary times. Look, I know they beat Brentford. I mean, we'll touch on that game in a little bit, right? But Champions League wise, it's looking rough, guys. And I think Galatasaray have enough to get through. I think it'll end up with United dropping into Europa League and Bayern and Galatasaray going through.
I think Galatasaray should have beaten Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where they
fumbled. Yeah.
I think United will make a comeback.
Fair enough.
Because Højlund's looking good, dude. I'm not gonna lie.
He is. He's a striker.
I think it'll come down to the Galatasaray game in Turkey, and I don't see Galatasaray losing that, to be honest.
Dude, but they're known to fumble though.
Yeah.
And United aren't, and United are known to be clutch.
I mean, they fumbled their game against Copenhagen. So
look, these Turkish clubs play for the occasion. They saw Copenhagen, they don't recognize the badge, they said whatever. Right?
They deflate. Like, I mean, I remember we used to play in Turkey against like Besiktas and all that, and it was all this hype, and the second we get there, great.
Yeah, if United don't score early in Turkey, it's gonna be long. But if they can get it done, we'll see. I don't know. I think United go to Europa, to be honest.
They meet Barcelona there.
Maybe. Who knows? But currently Barca are looking pretty comfortable at the top.
Yeah.
But let's go back to Premier League and let's continue on United. United were down 1-0 to Brentford until a certain Scott McTominay came on and decided to be the greatest striker ever for 12 minutes and led United to a 2-1 victory, scoring both goals, one of which I will recognize was assisted by Harry Maguire. The undesirables becoming cult heroes. Give me your guys' thoughts.
I feel like it's very hard to keep them motivated and like hungry for like when you keep them on the bench and they know they are not wanted there, and then when you throw them on, it's very hard for them to come on and like want to prove something. I don't know. Or maybe is it more? What do you think?
Well, I know McTominay was a striker growing up.
Yeah.
So maybe they should just play him there, to be honest, because at midfield he's pretty useless, but he just looks so good. I don't know, like his finishes looked instinctive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially the
But
His
first
finishes
finish.
are good. His touch and like turning and all that is not suitable for a midfielder.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Yeah.
just like no, but listen, I think Ten Hag got a real problem. Like something needs a shake up there, and like obviously he's probably not going to play McTominay at striker, but let's talk about like the first 80 something minutes of that game. It was not looking good at all. And Aziz, me and your Rashford take looks better and better and better every single day, dude. Like the attack is disjointed. The only, I guess, positives I think that are left at United are Hoyland, and to be honest, that's about it. Onana looks worse and worse every single week.
Dude,
It's
I
it
think it's when you're holding on like that and you're trying to just scrap by results, having a goalkeeper that objectively bad, not just oh, he does not, he's objectively a terrible goalkeeper by all the performance he's had this season.
Yep.
That is not helping them out at all because that's such a
no.
crucial role. Like if you're just letting, a goal just slip in, that prevents you from getting 3 points. Like it legitimately does. If you're trying to grind out a win, your goalkeeper can't just consistently make on average 1 to 2 mistakes every game, especially
Yeah.
when you're playing bad and in the dumps like this.
I think the rest of the team knows that as well, and that's the sad part because like, when you're a goalkeeper, he made a couple saves at the very end of the game, and usually your defense goes up and daps you up, be like, yeah, I'm roughing you up and stuff. Nobody went over to him because they know this man got him to that position. And it's just like I feel like, oh my, like the saves that he's just fumbling is just so bad. I remember one of the first few games, this guy was yelling at Maguire about his simple little pass mistake or something. Somebody needs to do that shit back to him. Like,
he's
what is
so
he on?
loud. He's so loud and annoying, and goalkeepers typically are. But you have to be able to back it up. You cannot
Right.
fold at every opportunity and then be this big character. And like I not to speak too much on his character, but this is the kind of guy that's like, oh, I want to do an interview after the game and explain my mistakes. Brother, where's this energy at training? Just be
Yeah.
a better keeper. Like
Yeah.
it's and it's one of the situations where these mistakes will compound because goalkeeper is a huge like confidence position, and if you're leaking goals every week, odds are, unless I don't know, you have a game where you pull off a save that gets you the points, something to really shift the momentum, odds
Yeah.
are that you will continue to make these mistakes.
And I'd be a little. I expect almost because Ten Hag is the type of manager, he doesn't really put up with bad performance week in week out. I don't even know who their backup
Their
goalkeeper is at
backup
this point.
keepers used to be fantastic. They had Dean Henderson just chilling for a while.
Right.
But now it's a Turkish guy. I forget his name,
Turkish,
but he's not a very
like
hot.
Hannibal. No. What am I saying?
No. Forget his name, but a youth goalkeeper. No
Yeah,
one with
Altai
much.
Binder or something like
Him.
that.
Yeah. There was rumors he was going to start against Galatasaray. It was like a Turkish edge, but didn't really
Yeah.
pan out.
Who knows what Ten Hag's gonna do with the situation? If it continues, I feel like he needs to take an action.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of listen, this situation at United right now, it's very much on Ten Hag. Like,
Mhm.
there's been significant investment. I feel like a broken record saying this every week, but at a certain point, a coach has to coach, right? Like, if things aren't working, you need to reinvent. I feel like Ten Hag right now is watching something burn, and he has like water and a fire hydrant right there, but he's refusing to act, and it should be frustrating for United fans. And I think patience starts to wane every week this isn't addressed. And the result will be a boost, but it's a band-aid on a sinking ship, like They need real change. So that'll be interesting to see. Any other topics we want to cover this week, gents?
You forgot to wear sweatshirts to hide our morbid obesity on camera.
Oh right, yeah. No, next week then. Actually, wait, there will be no episodes next week because I am not covering Euro qualifiers. So
unless something crazy happens.
Yeah, unless something really, really crazy happens. Or unless we do something about like history or like go back in time a little bit. But yeah, that concludes episode 6. We hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did. We will catch you, if not next week, in 2 weeks. Until then, goodbye.
Peace.